Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Story Archives. I'm your host, Mario Busto, alongside...
The other host, Zachary Newton. Welcome back.
We're back bringing you a new series, one that we promised, one that was requested. We're covering Fallout on Amazon Prime. Zach, what'd you think so far? Thanks for joining me on this ride through Fallout. We're going to do it a little differently, right? But maybe you can break that down for the audience.
Yeah, for sure. So we're not really doing an episodic cover on this show, but we are trying to kind of like bunch a few episodes together. That way we can get everything in for Fallout before we pivot to some of our other upcoming shows next month. So I will say so far, though, this show has been a pleasant surprise.
It's good. I mean, there's like this known thing in entertainment, like the curse of the video game adaptation, which most video games are always turned into movies or TV shows that just aren't very good. And personally, I had very low expectations for the Fallout series on Prime that they were bringing. It's been rumored for years, but I just didn't have very high expectations. But when I started seeing friend after friend talking about the show and saying how good it was, and granted, I have a personal affinity towards Bethesda Game Studios, which is the maker of Fallout, which Fallout was a video game first. There's multiple Fallouts, I've mainly played Fallout 3 and 4, I believe, but there's Fallout New Vegas. There's a bunch of Fallouts. It's not my personal favorite Bethesda game, but nonetheless, they're a pretty iconic game studio, and they've made games like Oblivion, Skyrim, and I spent most of my, I think junior year of high school playing video games, playing Oblivion like to pieces. I don't know if that was 9th or 10th grade, but my goodness. They just make the best RPGs, although they've recently made a few duds, at least ones that haven't been as well received. But hey, Fallout's doing well so far, and I'm assuming this has got to be a absolute smash hit for Amazon, and through 2 episodes, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it seems like it. From what I've seen, this show's been topping a lot of charts. I keep seeing it, not just in the recommendations from everybody listening, but just like anytime I'm like, what are the top shows right now? This tends to be the one that comes up the most. And I'm not like a big, Amazon Prime Video guy. Like I don't even know if I've watched an Amazon Prime show. I think, what was that, Fleabag? I think that was like an Amazon show or a Prime show or something. I think I watched that. It was okay. But no, like I was saying, like so far I'm really impressed with this. I also haven't played Fallout. Like it's always been one of those video games that growing up I was like, man, that looks like a cool game, but I never got it.
You probably
for whatever reason.
It's very old Americana. It's like retro future type stuff. So you'll see like a lot of stuff in the game feels very much 1950s vintage.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, like the technology, they don't really show it too much in the opening scene, which is, it's very humorous, right? By the way, the show, it's kind of like dark humor, very gory, but the game is very gory because the combat is in such a way that it allows you to target body parts. It's kind of like an interesting combat system where you can stop time and then target a body part, and it shows you a percentage that you hit it and stuff like that. So they really do, for the non-video game player who's watching this series, there's so many odes to the game, from Nuka-Cola to the roaches that are just mutated to the irradiated bear, to the Brotherhood of Steel, just the Ghoul. There's just a ton of video game references. The Vault is so on point. Even the intro of her going through the different attributes, because like any RPG, you choose the attributes that you want to level up, and the ones that you don't level up are weaker, obviously. So, they go through that whole bit. I don't recall in the Fallout lore anything about like marriage alliances between vaults and stuff like that, but I found that interesting because they just do a whole lot of world building in the opening sequence of the series when they introduce Ella Purnell's character, Lucy Maclean. So I thought that was pretty great, just all of the details that they went to with the series. But I gotta say, it's not surprising that it's a good show and that it's off to a great start, because you know who directed the first 2 episodes?
No, who?
Jonathan Nolan, who's Christopher Nolan's brother, associated with pretty much every single Chris Nolan film as a writer, are involved in the production in like deep capacity. So he directed 3 episodes of the first season, and he executive produced the show. I'm assuming he's a fan of the video game. So,
Must
and
be.
it sure did seem like a lot of people were clamoring to be a part of this show, even in small roles. Like you got the guy from Severance, who's one of the vault dwellers.
Yeah, Zach Cherry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you think so far of like the opening and just kind of like setting the stage for the series so far? Where you see it going from here? Because you're kind of blind about where the story is going to go from here.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
what are your thoughts so far?
I'm totally blind about where the story's gonna go. I was hooked like almost on the first scene.
Really?
Just like, well, I love timepiece like shows, and I also love when we mix like, you know, like, I don't know, like 50s 60s technology, and then you get like some. It felt very Silo-esque to me, to be honest,
Okay.
in multiple different points throughout this the first 2 episodes here. But yeah, no, I love that. I love that like vintage tech stuff. I mean, if you can't tell the fact that I like old, classier things just by the background, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I like those kinds of things. I really love the Ghoul. Like, I think I'm on his side. Like, I want to know more about his origin story here. But I'm liking him so far. So I think he's pretty cool. The Brotherhood is interesting. I don't know why it kind of made me think of Halo when I first saw these guys walking around. But it did. I really am not too sure about where this is going to go, if I'm being completely honest. Like, I mean, I would imagine there's probably, you know, Lucy ends up trying to, you know, finding her father or something at some point, though I don't know that he's going to be alive, just given how gory the show has been so far.
Yeah, it seems a little unforgiving so far of keeping people alive. That's for sure.
It does feel very unforgiving. So like, I don't have a lot of hope for that. I mean, the first episode is like a bloodbath. It's crazy. But I feel like this first season it's almost like just setting the stage for what could be in seasons to come, which, I mean, sounds rather obvious, but yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot more story to be told here. There's a lot more that's going to go on outside of just what feels like this very small storyline of like, oh, I'm trying to find my father. Like, we haven't really branched out from that just yet.
Well, to set the stage for the audience, we're going to be covering episodes 1 and 2 in this podcast, so we probably won't go beyond that. And then we'll keep on doing the same thing until we're through season 1, whether it's 2 or 3 episodes at a time. Whatever feels the best in terms of how can we do an entertaining podcast while condensing as much information as possible, because as we mentioned earlier, June's going to be pretty jam-packed. House of the Dragon season 2 is coming out, and we're going to cover that weekly, which is nice because that's not dropping all at once. So we'll be able to do that Sunday to Sunday, which will be a fun time. And we have The Bear season 3 coming out. And then once we're done with Fallout, I've heard amazing things about Shogun. So that is also happening. I'm also watching Black Sails on Netflix because they have just a major licensing agreement with a bunch of shows. So I started watching that. Season 1 was pretty good. So we'll see where it goes from there.
I saw that you did a solo on Black Sails. Actually, I listened to it because I was like, I was so close to starting to watch Black Sails on Netflix, but for whatever reason I didn't. Like, I don't know, it got too busy or watched something else. Couldn't tell you. But I didn't watch it. But it was like 3 days after, I was like, maybe I'll watch that. You end up dropping. I'm like, that's interesting. So I might go back and give that one a watch. I'm surprised. Are they still making it, or is it all out at this point?
Oh, it's all out. That's an old show. I think it
Okay.
dropped in 2015.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned it. It came out like 9 years ago, so I wasn't sure how relevant it still was, but seems pretty good.
Netflix is doing this thing, man. All the streamers are coming together. Now Comcast is going to offer a service called Stream Saver, which they're going to offer 3 streaming services in one. I think they're going to offer Netflix, Apple TV, and I want to say Peacock in one streaming service for $15 a month. I mean, Apple TV alone is $10 a month. Netflix alone for HD and no ads is like $17 a month. So I'm assuming they're going to start you on an ad plan.
Oh, probably. I mean, Netflix already does. My stupid Netflix plan has ads. It's so annoying.
But have you seen Netflix is bringing over a bunch of HBO titles now?
I have. Yeah,
and Dune 2, by the way, just dropped on Max, I think today.
For
So,
real? Oh,
yeah,
I cannot wait to watch that. I did not go see that one in theaters.
It's incredible. I don't know if it's available or showing in any big screens near you. I would recommend seeing it on a big screen first. It's just it's a spectacle for sure.
If I can, I didn't get to watch Dune. Dune on the big screen, the first one.
Oh,
but
got you. Yeah, either way, you'll enjoy it. It's just when you see it, you're gonna be like, oh, I can see what he's saying about wanting to watch this in IMAX or something. I know you like the tech and stomping, like kind of tech stopping, but it's kind of being major, kind of like mixed retro futuristic, kind of.
It's like
not steampunk, but they don't even dive into it. By the way,
it feels steampunk, if it or cyberpunk at the very least. It kind of reminds me of some of the just like that bulky tech, right? Like it's just steampunk. It's interesting. It's aesthetic. I love it. Like it looks great.
All right, before we kick this off, another reminder, y'all. If you're liking this podcast, if you're liking the episodes of shows we're covering, make sure to show us some appreciation. Go on over to our reviews, rate us 5 stars, and leave us a nice review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and if you're watching this on YouTube, like the video and let us know which show you're looking forward to most that we're covering in June. All right, talking more about the tech. They don't even dive into it as much as they do. There's robots and stuff like that in the game, like in the 1950s and stuff like that, but they give you a lot from the game here. They give you everything from stim packs to Nuka-Cola to Cram to pretty much all the props are key to the show. The town of Philly is like identical to what's in the game. It's pretty insane. The Pip-Boy that you wear on the wrist where shows you like the rads, like the radiation of somebody and like your attributes and stuff like that. All of that is Vault technology. So all of that is just incredible. But let's kick it off because we open the show with Cooper Howard, who turns into the Ghoul. So there's a lot more to that story than we know of what happened. But starts off with Cooper Howard, who seems to be kind of like an ex-A-list celebrity cowboy star, maybe like a Clint Eastwood type, who's now maybe fallen on some rough times. Maybe not as much of a demand for movies since the world seems to be like at a cold nuclear war. And now he's working children's parties with his daughter, who essentially rich people are paying him and talking crap about him at the party, making comments about him needing alimony money and all that sort of thing. But they really kick off the nuclear apocalypse very quickly from pretty much the get-go. And it's Walter Goggins, by the way, who plays Cooper Howard. He's known for a lot of stuff. He's in Django. He's in Hateful Eight. He's in Justified, which was a big show on FX. And just the beginning of the show with his daughter, of the whole scene with, if the cloud is bigger than your thumb or if the cloud is smaller than your thumb, run. If it's bigger than your thumb, don't even bother.
Don't waste your energy.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm assuming, and we'll get some sort of flashback, right? Because when we meet Lucy Maclean's character, it's 219 years later. So something happened to Cooper that he was able to not only survive, but survive for just in a form that is, they haven't really introduced feral ghouls yet. He's technically a ghoul, which those are enemies in the game. They're like radiated humans who are like, just think Last of Us kind of.
Yeah.
In a way, that's why they approach him and they say, they can't resist a chicken type of thing when he's in the graveyard, because they're not.
They're animals. At that
they're like
point,
zombies.
Right?
They're pretty much like the worst zombies. They're not slow zombies. They sprint. They're fast as hell. And you see the advantage he has when he's literally getting shot by people in the town of Philly, and they're just kind of like bouncing off of him. So he's a legendary bounty hunter character, and there's more to that. You obviously have taken a liking to him. So what are your first impressions of the Ghoul?
I mean, he's I don't know. He just seems like one of those villains that you gotta love.
You think he's a villain?
Well, I feel like the show is painting him as such, like, a bit. Like, I mean, he ends up killing a bunch of people right out the gate. So there's that. I think he, I don't know, probably uses like questionable tactics or something. Like I feel like right now, like we're led to believe that he's the bad guy and that, the Vault Tech people are the good people. And I kind of feel like that's going to switch at some point. Maybe I'm like I said, I'm liking the Ghoul. I do want to know a lot more about like how he went from being a really
A good
cool
dad.
dude, seemingly a nice dad, good human being to this like murderous, bloodthirsty ghoul. I mean, granted, if I was basically dead and was in a nuclear apocalyptic like land, I don't know what I would do at that point, but yeah, I want to know how we got to where he is right now, because that seems like such a big arc. I feel like there's so much interesting things to find out there. It makes me wonder like what's up with his daughter, because the last we saw he was riding off with her. So I don't know, like did she die? Like was she killed by a bunch of people, and that's what kind of like sent him off onto this like sort of the gray area villain hero kind of person. I'm not sure, but
I'm assuming his daughter's dead. I'm assuming
too. Like I don't think we're just gonna randomly get like Ghoul number 2 that's his daughter just walking around. I'm not expecting that. I am expecting to get like some flashback at some point that shows me what happened, right? But that's about as far as my imagination can go here.
So at first, like I said, I played mainly Fallout 4, and I don't remember completing the game, but like I said, it's more Elder Scrolls was more my jam with Bethesda games. So Oblivion and Skyrim were more my my stomping grounds. But I think he was going full-fledged villain until he revived the dog. If he doesn't revive the dog, it's pretty much everybody who's watching the show hates his guts. But when you see he has a soft side and he stim packs the dog, and the dog gets up and he's not immediately attacking this ghoul, you can kind of see that this ghoul is not necessarily 100%. Yeah, he's not 100% evil.
And that's my point. Land. Right, like it felt like he was the villain for a little while in this, but I mean, look, he totally had alternative motives for bringing the dog back. He was using the dog to track down this guy, but I feel like he's going to be the character that I grow to like a lot more throughout the rest of the show.
Speaking of other characters, one of the interesting things in the beginning is that you can tell this world that we're being introduced to, right? Because they got to do a job of setting the scene for the audience of where we are and all that. It seems like a world that people have been preparing for a nuclear fallout, because the moment it begins, you have families who are running towards their shelters, right? Not only that, but there's a futuristic technology that's been developed, which is called Vault Tech, which are these massive vaults, which I would assume if Vault Tech existed today for a potential nuclear war, it would be like the billionaires, the richest of the rich getting into these vault dwellers, which you can kind of see that class warfare theme going on here with the old lady shopkeeper who pretty much says F the vault dwellers. We're not, that was just a bunch of rich people who hid in holes type of thing. And there's sort of this animosity from the surface dwellers towards the vault dwellers, and the vault dwellers have this sort of knight in shining armor mentality, like, we're going to save America. And everyone who's in America is like, all right, what were you waiting for? You've been hiding in a vault for 219 years. So there's that whole dynamic going on. And I will say this about any Bethesda video game, any Bethesda RPG, the lessons and the themes, they leave a lot of the choices up to the player. So there's multiple endings to some of their games, to most of their games. So I'm assuming that whatever is going to happen in this series is going to be something that's very discussable, something that's very controversial. Like, hey, what would you have done in the situation? It's not going to be as easy as a black and white sort of decision necessarily. And we're introduced really to this concept of conflicting desires or emotions or thought or decision making from Wilzig. What's the scientist's name? Wilzig?
I believe so.
Something like that. Wilvig. The guy actually who was in Saw. I think he plays
Wilzig.
Jigsaw.
Yeah.
I think he
Michael
plays
Emerson.
I think he plays a version of Jigsaw in one of the Saw movies. And he's kind of like already kind of off-putting in that way to look at him. But he kind of lets Lucy Maclean know when he meets her by the campfire, says, or maybe it's in the town, where he says, the question is, are you going to want the same things once you stay up here? He keeps on warning her, go back down to the vault. The longer you stay up here, the more you'll change. And he kind of has this respect almost for vault dwellers of like, almost like pure children who haven't had to experience the hardships of this war-torn land type of thing, which is pretty interesting. But The show kicks off 219 years later. We're introduced to the Vault Dwellers, and Lucy's tired of messing around with her cousin, and it's time for her to find a mate, which leads to really the catalyst of the series, them being introduced to Vault 32, which was interesting to me because the whole time I'm watching the show, I'm like, all right, what is going to be the reason they leave this vault, right? And is it going to be a reason that's interesting enough to keep my attention? And it was. What was your thought of the being introduced to the world of Fallout as someone who didn't play the game and seeing the vault for the first time? And were you expecting a vault, so to speak? Because you start the series with Cooper Howard. Were you expecting that 219-year time skip to the civilization of people who sort of live underground?
I definitely was not expecting a 219-year time skip. So no, I was not expecting that. The vault I didn't find surprising because it kind of just it makes sense that you would have some people locked away, like especially with when we just jump to these people and it's just they're so clean and everything. I was like, oh yeah, they're in a silo. That just felt like second nature. Maybe it's because I've watched Silo, I don't know, but that just felt obvious to me. So no, wasn't too surprised overall about the vault situation. I did find I found the dynamics of the vault very interesting. It is a little. I mean, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. I mean, everybody seems to have a fairly incestuous relationship at this point, but you're multiple generations into the future. Like this is almost, you've almost taken the time that the U.S. has been a country and jumped that equal amount of time into the future at this point. So it's also funny how into America all of these people are that have not experienced America in such a long time. But no, the culture is interesting, and the vault, they're honestly a little they're comically foolish and gullible about a lot of things, which I find that I like that the show isn't so dark, right? There's definitely, it's gruesome, but it's not very dark yet, at least to me. So I'm liking that so far.
I think that is definitely going to be the play here, right? There's a lot of sort of NPC moments where it feels like she's meeting supporting characters who are, it's meant to feel video gamey, like you're meeting that random NPC who says a joke. I mean, by far, the funniest moment of the first two episodes to me is the night Titus seeing the bear. and then, I mean, you could have given me $1 million or not $1 million, 1 million attempts to guess who was the Titan.
Oh my God.
And I would have never guessed that it was Michael Rappaport.
Never. My favorite scene he's ever done, by the way. Just great.
I mean, I was dying, bro. When he takes off the helmet and he's just like, I got this bear on top of me. He's just losing his shit. The entire scene is hilarious to me. And his deep voice when he's just freaking out in the cave was the best.
That was too funny.
I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Max's character.
Yeah.
But I'm getting to like him more as sort of this. He's kind of just as naive as Lucy in her own ways, right? He's very idealistic. He has this one shining mission, which is to make the world a better place, which is kind of the same as her mission, right? And he has this affinity or this allegiance to the Brotherhood of Steel, which is one of many factions in the land of Fallout that we'll, I'm sure, be introduced to. And he has a rough go of it. I mean, to the point where I'm like, why is he so hated on this, by everybody? He is literally bullied by everybody in this base.
Yeah. I'm not really clear yet, which I'm sure is intentional, on whose side everybody is on, right? The I don't know, these knights or the Brotherhood, they feel a little cultish, just saying, but they almost seem like they're really the good guys, they're peacekeepers, keeping an eye out for people. Now I don't know how real or truthful that is, because these suits are intimidating as hell. Yeah, so I'm kind of curious to see like where that's gonna go. Like, are they good? Are they bad? Like, I feel like they're meant to just be kind of cleaning up the earth, killing all the, I guess, the ghouls and other contaminated, infected, whatever we want to call them, creatures.
Well, if Titus is any reflection of how the rest of these knights are, they're not very good. I mean, he at one point he jumps off of the plane and says, "I'm bored. I want to shoot stuff." Like he's just not necessarily the example of a guy you want with that kind of power
No.
in his hands, right?
No.
He seemed about as prepared as Max.
So surprised. Yeah. What were you saying?
Like he seemed about as prepared as Max when he put his suit on for the first time and fighting that bear.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, I was not expecting that bear to go down with one bullet.
I think it was like I think it was 2 bullets.
Okay.
To the head. So I also would not have expected it to go down with 2 bullets. I thought Max was. I didn't think he was gonna die. I thought he was gonna get like seriously maimed or something here. But, I guess the weaponry, 200 years in the future, is a little stronger than what we have now. I wouldn't expect that to put down a bear. They got some hard heads, dude.
Yeah. So going back to Lucy in the vault, the main conflict going on in this series right now is really driven by this bandit raider type leader, Leah Moldover, which feels very much like Voldemort when you say her name. But she has kidnapped Lucy's dad, and she's obviously up to something, right? Because she wants to kidnap. It seems like she wants to kidnap highly effective people, right? Like her father, like the scientist. Like she's not necessarily just going into I thought they were going into the vault to just kill everybody. I wasn't expecting it. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be we're going to kidnap one person. I thought it was going to be, hey, they killed their dad, they killed their brother, and it was going to be a revenge thing. I was not expecting the twist of the dad may still be alive. Let's go after him, right?
Yeah.
Did you got the notion that these were cannibals, right?
Yeah, I did.
Were they cannibals though? Like upon second watch, I questioned myself as to whether they were cannibals. I guess they were, because the guy who was in the rocking chair in the other vault was missing
his
a
leg.
leg.
Was like in a bucket or something. Like I feel like you gotta kind of be fairly cannibalistic to go that far.
And the people were kind of deranged too, right?
Yeah, they were really, really crazy. Not the kind of people you'd want to be friends with. Just saying. Mm-hmm. No, I do think that they were cannibals, but it's possible it was out of necessity. Like, I don't know how long they were in the other vault for, by the way.
They weren't. They were raiders. They were faking being vault dwellers.
No, I know, but I mean, the other vault was completely destroyed, so I imagine they came down into the other vault. Somehow they got in. And then they had killed people. They probably consumed all of the food, and then they resorted to eating the people at that point. And then they're like, well, there's nothing else here, so let's try and mosey on over to Vault 33. So it could have been that it was just out of like necessity, because I mean they weren't just eating people here.
You want to talk about food? Sorry, what were you saying at the end?
No, I was just saying they were eating food too in this show. So
yeah, well, there was a blight with the crop and the other thing.
Yeah.
What was the whole purpose of bombing the door? It didn't seem like that bomb did anything other than break that door open, so they couldn't close the gate between Vault 32 and 33. I
don't know.
I was thinking that the whole time. I was like, what is the bomb for?
I'm still confused on that. Like, because it didn't. If it was to kill people, it was extremely ineffective because it killed nobody.
She gave time for everybody to run. She said, "Hey, why don't you guys get out of here?"
Yeah, like I don't understand. Like it's not like you could get back in unless like the other vault was still open to the outside or something.
Maybe.
But yeah, I'm still fuzzy on why.
I want to talk two things. I want to talk about pain tolerance. Imagine taking a fork to the eyeball.
Oh my God. No.
And she's just chilling. She's just like not making any noise, like just nothing.
No, she's cool. She's happy with both life.
Talk about. I mean, you think Lucy has a bad honeymoon where she just has sex with her husband, finds out he's a raider, ends up getting into a fight to the death with her newlywed husband.
Yeah.
I'm assuming she's not going to be pregnant because it's probably like radiated sperm. Or who knows? Maybe the baby's gonna be like a radiation baby.
Well, but she got stabbed in the abdomen,
Oh, true.
and
So
then she's going outside too. So I mean, like she's gonna deal with all the radiation. Like I think she's probably given up on that dream. I don't think that is necessarily gonna happen. I don't know. Maybe she'll birth a ghoul or something. I have no idea.
To set the record straight, I believe most of the above ground is radiation free. There are zones in the game that are heavily radiated, but I believe that most of the zones are safe at this point, which I think would be the case in real life. I mean, think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on where all the nukes fell, which is crazy. It's crazy that they had time to build all of these shelters before a nuclear apocalypse occurred.
That's what I'm saying.
Imagine like right now, just like with the world as it is, like hey, we're there might be nuclear bombs that go off. Let's build a shelter. How many years do you think it'd take for people to build shelters like this?
Well, I'll be honest, they probably already exist, and we're just not wealthy enough to know about them. That's pretty much.
Hey, I know that there's these places out in like I think it's the Midwest or whatever.
Yeah. Midwest, North Dakota. These abandoned air bases where they're bunkers pretty much. Yeah. But I'll be honest, dude. Would you want to survive during this thing and be underground for, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I think it would be interesting.
I'd like to take my chances above ground.
I mean, I would like to as well, but I would also like to try and preserve myself from the radiation because that.
I get.
I've watched Chernobyl. That does not make me want to be exposed to radiation. That's the last freaking thing that I think I'm not sure what is worse. Dying from like all of that radiation, or being like lit on fire, which is like the two worst ways in my mind that you can go. So I think I'd jump in the bunker. I'd jump in the vault.
All right, rest of your life in the vault.
I mean, rest of my life in the vault, or like sit outside and boil alive. Like,
I get it. Hey, look, man, it's not an ideal scenario either way.
No, it's not.
I guess the vault is a better one, But they do exist. I mean, Zuckerberg bought like a whole island or a whole freaking crazy portion of Hawaii recently.
Okay.
So, anyways.
Zuck's got it figured out.
Yeah. So Leah Moldover ends up kidnapping Lucy's dad, takes him above ground, and that essentially leads us to the end of Lucy's storyline in episode 1, where she leaves the vault. We got to be somewhere near California, which I think it's a little misleading, right? Because you go outside and you think it's a nuclear wasteland.
Yeah.
And it ends up just being sand dunes because she's by the beach for the most part. But that's the Santa Monica Pier, if I'm not mistaken, in the background.
I've been a little confused because at first I thought it was like, California, West Coast. And then I thought it was like New York. I'm like, maybe it was New York or something because they're like, well, there's this city called, Philly, right? You mentioned?
Yes.
So I'm like, is that supposed to be Philadelphia? It's not, clearly. But yeah, I guess it's West Coast. It's got to be. I mean, it would make sense too because I mean that's where the whole film scene was. The Ghoul before he was the Ghoul. That's where he worked.
Yes,
on the film set. So it's got to be over there. LA. Yeah.
Oh no, that's guaranteed. The opening city was LA, 100%. I just don't know.
Then they've got to still be over there.
But in Fallout, I know for a fact it's in Boston at some points. Like there is one, because I remember there being a baseball stadium, and it was like the Green Monster was there.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm fuzzy on it, man. I got to go back and play the game. All right, so we've caught up. We've got Lucy covered. She leaves the vault, goes after her dad, and we have the mystery of who Leah Moldover is. Right? She doesn't seem like an explicitly purely evil character yet. She definitely has some underlying motive, huh?
That's like everybody in the show so far. It's like everybody. You're like, are they good? Are they like? I'm not. It's not clear cut. Like, and then you think everybody in the vault is like the good guy. Like they're painted as the good guys, but let's be real. They're kind of stupid. At least I think they're stupid. But I'm also not so sure that they're the good guys, right? Like, I feel like in shows like this, whenever you've got like the elite, right? Like there's something dark that happened there. Like there's something that they may have done to get to the status that they're at, or get to where they are, or be safe this long. So I'm not certain that they're good either.
The Vault Dwellers or
the Vault Dwellers.
I think it could be one. We're gonna find out more about each one. But when you meet Wilzig, who's the scientist who's on the run, who coincidentally everybody's after. The Brotherhood of Steel's after him. The bounty hunters are after him, and Leah damn it, bro, I'm messing up her name.
Moldover.
You want to call him Voldemort? Leah wants him too, which means that contending factions want this guy, right? The city he's in, the Brotherhood of Steel, the bounty hunters, and that's gonna open up the rest of the world as to who the other factions are who aren't Leah, right? And we haven't been introduced to them yet. But we're introduced to this guy. He is essentially this leading scientist who takes a liking to one of the dogs in in his little laboratory where they're breeding these dogs from birth type of thing.
Killing them if they're like under 10 pounds, yeah.
Pretty much. But didn't he spare this particular one?
He did.
He fudged the number.
Yeah, he lied. He should have killed the dog. According to the sheet.
Exactly. So he kept this one alive, personally trained him in his own room, had like a whole little thing. I mean, it's a sweet little story with this dog, and it always feels like it's a German Shepherd. Anyways, he injects himself with something which we can only assume is some special piece of information that makes him incredibly valuable. That glowing thing he drills into the back of his ear.
Yeah. I was not sure what that was going to be. I'm going to be... So when I was watching that scene, like the opening of episode 2, I wasn't paying like super close attention, and I like rolled it back like 5 times because I thought I missed something. Like before he like was looking at the thing and then he injects into his head, I'm like, what was that? I like skip it back, and I kept feeling like I was missing something. But I guess it's just a mystery. Like I thought for a moment like the dogs had an implant that would allow the people to like control them or something, and so he was injecting something into his head that would allow him to like communicate with the dog or something like that. That's where my head went when I saw it, at least. But clearly, I don't think that's the case. I would love to know what is stored on this tiny, tiny little chip.
Well, we're gonna find out because episode 2 ends with Lucy chopping his head off with an electric saw.
Yeah.
So,
when she did it, I bet she did it.
He killed himself pretty quick, huh?
Well, he took cyanide.
That's what I'm saying. Is that like he made that decision pretty quickly?
I feel like living in this time, like it's kind of like living life like Tommy Shelby. Like you're already kind of dead.
Who's
right?
Tommy Shelby?
Tommy Shelby, the lead character from the Peaky Blinders show that we covered, and we have an episodic coverage on this podcast from. Yeah, that one. I feel like you're kind of already dead, right? Like any minute that you already have is kind of like a bonus in some chaotic wasteland like this. So I don't think there's like that much weight put into these decisions. But it was rather quick. I wasn't expecting to see him be like, yeah, I popped a pill. Yeah, I'm gonna die.
Well,
and like
that goes to the comedic side of the show.
2 minutes was it? It's crazy.
That goes to the comedic side of the show where he's like, pretty much telling her, I'm not gonna make it. She's like, listen, you're gonna make it. He's like, no, I just took a cyanide pill. I am literally not gonna make it. So that's kind of the dark humor of the show. I just think it was a decision that they didn't want to keep his character around, and she's far more interesting. They didn't want to keep him pretty much tied to her hip, right? It's more interesting to see Lucy navigate this world almost like a baby, who's experiencing everything for the first time,
I don't want like her to have a mentor the entire time, right?
Exactly. Just the way she approaches everything is the way it's almost like she got like an employee orientation on how to deal with the world, so much so that when she's trying to de-escalate the situation with the ghoul, it feels very much like a training video. If you see the offender, first state your case. And she's like, just doing everything, to the point where she's asking somebody for directions and she has them at gunpoint.
Yeah, which was very funny, by the way.
Yeah.
The poor farmer, the creepy ass farmer too, by the way. Like, holy crap!
Who's another famous actor who had like just a random cameo. He's in a bunch of stuff.
Interesting.
I believe he's in Boardwalk Empire. He was in the Martin Scorsese movie with DiCaprio that just came out on Apple TV last year. I'm blanking on the name of it right now. The Blood Moon, something like that. Flowers of the Blood Moon.
I don't know. He reminds me of like Father John Misty or something, the artist.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, like, is that him?
He creeped me out, man, with that diaper.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm like, oh yeah, you probably grew up with that. But anyways, what was I getting at? Yeah, no, like it's funny though, because the time period that Lucy and everybody, let's say the Vault Tech people are from is like the 1960s. And, if you've ever gone back and you've looked at like public announcement videos or anything like that from that time period, it's very much like what you were talking about. It's just like, well, if you run into the situation, state your case, do this, do that. And it's just like looking back on it from now, it feels very comical. Like it's just like how could that be, what everybody was learning from or what the training material was. So it felt very fitting. I'll say that at the very least. But yes, I do like watching her navigate these waters like a child. It makes the show funny.
Oh yeah, it keeps it light when there's all this gore and darkness in the show.
Yeah,
and it also feels very much like the show was made by people who are honoring the game rather than doing what a lot of people do, which is do their own creative take on something that should be followed to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
Because Bethesda does tell great stories, so there's things to take and pull from, and you can see the world building. The world building is not from the creators of the show. The world building was done pretty much entirely by that game studio. So I do wonder if Todd Howard, the creative game director, was involved in the show. I'm assuming he had an intricate part, even though Microsoft did acquire Bethesda rather recently, and they just shut down a few of their studios. Microsoft.
Well then, thanks Microsoft.
Yeah.
I've got to say that prosthetic limb that Wilson got had to have been like one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen. Like that looked like a freaking meat grinder.
Look like a dishwasher garbage processor.
Crap. Yeah.
Shredding his leg.
Like, what is that going to do?
I think it stopped the bleeding and just sealed it and made his foot a can with a...
I felt like that was just like a wood chipper, like sticking your leg in a wood chipper is what it looked like, to be honest. Like it just like, I was like, I thought she was going to like cut his leg off up to his knee or something. I was not expecting that.
Okay, so we talked about, the one thing I wasn't a huge fan of in the show was the fact that these characters kept running into each other. And I was very much confused how Titus knew, like they didn't know the exact cave that the scientist was at, and yet they ended up at the exact cave that this scientist stopped outside of.
Yeah.
And then the ghoul goes straight to Philly, and he runs into. I found that to be something that was just very, like, extremely convenient.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I've felt that way. Though in this show, it bothers me a hell of a lot less than in a lot of other shows. And I feel like it's because this was like inspired by a game and it feels like it. So you kind of make these acceptances for situations like this. Like it's not too big of a deal. But yeah. And on top of that, Wilson running into Lucy like twice. Like it's crazy.
Exactly.
Not gonna
I will say, but maybe it's one of those things like, you ever go to the airport and you see somebody and you just know, like you see this person and they're annoying. You just see them and you're like, this person is going to be annoying. And that person just somehow sticks with you through the whole trip. Somehow. All those people going on different flights to different parts of the world, but that one person you just intuitively know, this person is going to be on my plane and they're going to be within 5 rows of me. Never happened?
Yeah. No, it's definitely happened where somebody sticks with you the whole ride. I've experienced it. I've experienced it where it's been on a round trip too. Unfortunately, like, I mean, I couldn't get away from it. The person was my brother, but you know.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah. I'm just kidding, but no, like I have had strangers where I'm like, all right, this is gonna be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of that cave, Max makes a pretty crucial decision outside of it while Michael Rappaport, aka Titus the Knight, is dying and needs a stim pack. Max kind of gets fed up finally of all the bullying treatment, which I gotta say, if you're dying and you need the person who's right in front of you to give you something to help you live, it's probably not the time to berate them and call them pretty much the cause of everything negative that's happening.
Oh,
to you
yeah.
right now, right?
Yeah. It was just like the moment he started, and I'm like, dude, this guy's not gonna help you, man. Like, he's just gonna stand there and watch you die, and he did.
And Max,
I would have done the
this
same.
entire time is kissing his ass the entire time, like being as nice as possible, and still. I think we got to switch it to Maximus. I think Max is just too lame of a name. Like it's like
feels like Mad Max or something.
Yeah, just something. Maximus feels like something better.
Feels like it could be an epic character, right? Like,
for that space suit.
Yeah,
no, not space suit, that robot suit.
Would you want a robot suit like that if you lived in a post-apocalyptic land like this?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I'd imagine it would be hot as hell in there, though.
It's got to be horrible in there, but I mean, if I got to face, radiated bears and all sorts of things like that, then
the cockroaches that are like the size of a freaking dog. Holy crap!
Exactly.
And I'm sure that they procreate at the same rate, if not a higher rate. So like, I'm surprised there's not more cockroaches. If I'm being honest, there's only one, and Wilson is talking about traveling in a pack. We got.
I'm sure we'll see more. They're all over the game, so yeah. I'm assuming, or maybe they won't be, because it would be pretty obnoxious to see those giant roaches the entire TV series.
Every turn you take, that would be.
Yeah, they're everywhere. So, okay. Let's talk about the Ghoul standoff in the city.
Ooh.
Because that's probably the most iconic scene of the first 2 episodes, is pretty much seeing that the Ghoul's a badass. The Ghoul is literally just Clint Eastwood in Ghoul form. And he definitely operates by his own moral code, right? Wilzig is convinced that he needs to get to Leah Mulder. What's her name?
Moldover, yeah.
And he's paid 1,000 bottle caps to this old lady shopkeeper to get him there, while the Ghoul's having no part of this. So I'm assuming, I mean, let's talk about the Ghoul's standoff and the fact that I don't think bullets affect him necessarily. What was your take on this scene and the fact that he shoots down the whole town with a gun that doesn't seem to run out of bullets, to be honest?
I thought it was amazing. I think it was my favorite scene out of episodes 1 and 2, just because of how purely chaotic and badass it was. Like, honestly, great. Was surprised that the gun didn't really run out of bullets, especially when you learn a little bit later that it only holds 4 shells. So that's interesting. But again, video game origin. All right, I'll let it slide. But yeah, it seems like the Ghoul is somewhat invincible. I mean, he's lived 200 years or something like that, so that's pretty impressive.
He took a couple of direct shots
right in the back
from Max, like direct shots. So, by the way, the set building of Philly is terrific. Just absolutely, you could tell. I mean, most of it's got to be practical, right?
Yeah, it feels like portion. A lot of it, like everything that's close up, clearly
felt very real.
Yeah.
Okay, so he stands off with Max, newly acquainted knight who doesn't do too well in his suit. Kind of luckily survives, because if he doesn't fly away, he's dead right there. Wilzig escapes with Lucy, who has no choice when she finds out that the person that he is being transported to is the exact same person who kidnapped her father. And so we end the episode really with Lucy cutting off Wilzig's head on her way to meet Leah Moldover to hopefully use, or I'm expecting her to use, his head as a bargaining chip to get her father back.
I would assume so. That or just be on her good side. Not that we know there is one yet, but yeah.
Well, we know Leah knows her mother because she makes a comment to her when she's looking at her through the glass, like, you look just like your mother. So that's another bit of kind of foreshadowing that she actually had a relationship with her father, probably.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see where it goes.
That Moldaver might be her aunt.
Maybe.
That could be interesting, right? Like maybe her mother was her sister. And Lucy's father like kicked Leia out.
Lucy came out really white if her mother was a sister to Leah Moldaver.
I've seen some stuff. You never know. You like it doesn't matter all that much. Like it just depends on how much of the genes you get from one person.
All right. Like it's got to be like an inkling, like a little tan.
A little bit. I don't know. I mean, just throwing it out there. It's a possibility.
I don't know what you've seen out there, but I'm not going to make any comments what you may or may not have seen. All right. Know. What do you think's going to happen here, Zach? I mean, our next episode of the pod will probably be covering about 3 episodes. So what do you think's happening? Any sort of expectations of where the series goes from here? I'll say right off the bat, I don't know if this is going to be a prolonged Lucy Maclean story or whether we're going to be doing spin-off series because the world of Fallout is so huge.
I mean, to state the obvious, I think in the next few episodes, Lucy's going to, get to her destination with his head, try to bargain things. Like there's got to be some bigger battle or something. It looks like there was a little something between Lucy and Maximus, so I'm not quite sure how that little relationship's going to play out, but they seem to take a liking to each other a little bit in this episode 2 to be specific. I'm gonna leave it at that. Like I'm so new to this world here. I'm not quite sure what else could happen or might happen. Like I'm still trying to figure out, like, are there legitimate zombies or something like that in this? Like, because I got every now and then I got the feeling like there's zombies. We know there's like infected or like irradiated animals. So I mean, if they can get a bear like that, I imagine there's some bigger creatures too out there.
Get ready. There is, I think, a mystery unfolding because before Wilzig dies, he mentions that he says her name, and they've never formally introduced themselves to each other. Yeah. So he knew who she was before he died. So I think there's going to be more coming out about her family, and their roots or their origins, and what their role should be in this world. But all right, you want to go on to categories?
Yeah, let's get into categories. Let's cover favorite scene of the 2 episodes.
My favorite scene is the Michael Rappaport fighting the bear.
That was epic.
Him running out of the cave is hilarious.
That was funny. Mine would probably be like, I do think that the showdown with the Ghoul, I think it was great. Like that, when I think back, that's definitely one of the big scenes that I remember. It's hard to forget that one. If I were going to stretch back to like episode 1, I found, man, what does this say about me as a human being? I found the massacre to be very, very interesting. It's just the way they do it. It's so funny. Like I love the music that they use in the show.
That was going to be the next
Bing Crosby. You've got like so much the ink spots going on in the background all the time.
The ink spots will be the intro music to this podcast.
Oh my goodness gracious! It's just like there's so much.
The most iconic song of the series is the final song they play at the end of episode 2. I don't want to set the world on fire. That's the song that'll be the podcast intro, because that's the song really that's the most iconic in Fallout's history, to be honest.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. No, I love the hilarious like contrast between the music. It's just like how happy everything is going on.
Yeah,
and then you just got this, just whatever is going on. I think there was a video game, that came out. I can't remember what it was. It was like the zombie video game or whatever. And there's just like the trailer, like there's just this chaos going on, and then I think there's like a song from the Beach Boys that's playing or something like that, or the Turtles. It's the Turtles,
Mm.
Happy Together. Um, I always loved that ad, that trailer. Like, it always stood out to me. Never played the game, always wanted to, but yeah, I guess I just like that kind of thing. Um, all right, let's pivot over to favorite character.
I gotta say Lucy. Lucy's definitely my favorite character so far in the series. I have a runner-up. The runner-up's probably gonna be your favorite character, but what's yours?
The Ghoul.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, look, Lucy's interesting, and I'm very curious, but I'm not like super attached to her character yet. Um, I I'm a lot more interested in what's going on with the Ghoul. I am interested in understanding everything that happened with Voltec as a whole. But I'm not too into Lucy's character just yet.
I'm interested in seeing how her character's like psyche evolves as she continues to spend more and more time on the surface. Like that's probably the most
Yeah,
interesting thing on the show to me at the
she's
moment.
gonna have to adapt and
She
become
just
very
she just cut some
animalistic.
she just cut somebody's head off. Mind you,
Yeah.
what the gun she brought to the surface was a tranquilizer gun.
Well, she didn't have any other weapons available to her down there, right? Like
I
she
know,
like
but her
yeah.
first instinct is not to get a weapon that can. She could have picked up a weapon that killed people. I mean, there was guns.
Mhm.
There was guns with that had
Yeah, there was. She was looking
ammunition.
at him.
Exactly. So her
Yeah.
instinct is not to kill. So I think that'll
I
be.
think
But
that'll
I
change
kind of
quick.
hope the show doesn't descend into pure darkness. So keep
Yeah.
her character kind of pure at all times would be nice.
Yeah. I mean, if she works out like every other character, she'll be towing the line quite a bit, I'd imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, any lines that stood out to you aside from Michael Rappaport just running, say fuck, 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 fuck?
Yeah, that was hilarious. I'd say the line that Cooper, aka the Ghoul, before he became the Ghoul, says to his daughter about the thumb and the size of the cloud. I
Mhm.
thought that was probably my favorite, most memorable line of the first two episodes.
All right, all right, cool.
What about yours?
Well, I mean that the Michael Rappaport one, I just
Okay.
thought was hilarious. Like I could not stop laughing
Hmm.
when I watched. It was before I knew who it was too, so that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Outside of that, no like specific lines are standing out to me too much. Like it doesn't feel like a very line heavy show unless you just like get like a one liner here and there. And I feel like the one liners are all gonna come from the
Oh,
Ghoul.
it
Like
definitely will be. It's definitely going to be a dialogue heavy show for sure. The Ghoul
yeah.
and it has the best lines for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. There was he said something. I can't remember what it was. Unfortunately, but he said something when he came out of the grave and he killed the
Yeah. He says,
the bounties.
us cowpokes, we got to take it as it comes or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That seems to be his slogan as we go through the
Yeah.
show. But that's all I got. Anything else you want to cover there?
No, that's it. That's it. You go ahead and take us to your outro.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Fallout by Story Archives. You can find this podcast anywhere you find podcasts, Apple and Spotify podcasts. You can find us on YouTube at Soapbox Podcast Network. You can visit our website at soapbox.house. Email us at contact@soapbox.house. And there is a link in the description below to sign up for our newsletter.
Alrighty. See you guys next week as we continue our coverage on Fallout. Peace.
Peace.